For decades in India, your entire future could hinge on one simple fact. Were you born a son or a daughter? And this was especially true when it came to family property. So today we're going to unpack the long, winding legal battle that fought to change a law that, for a long time, treated sons and daughters very, very differently.
So, are they truly equal? It seems like a pretty straightforward question, right? But for decades, the answer was, well, it was a mess, all tangled up in law and tradition. So let's get into it. Let's untangle that knot. All right, so first things first, let's talk about the old property rules. To really get why today's rights are such a big deal, we've got to go back to the beginning, to the system that was running the show for more than 50 years.
Okay, and it's super important to get this one thing straight. We're not talking about, the house someone buys with their own money. The absolute heart of this whole fight is something called ancestral property. Think of it as family wealth, passed down from father to son to grandson for generations. And this is exactly where the law itself drew a line in the sand. So, the official rulebook for all of this? That was the Hindu Succession Act of 1956. This one law basically laid out who got what in a Hindu joint family. And man, it created a system with some really clear and really unequal levels. Okay, so here's how it all worked. The law basically split the family into two groups. In one corner, you had members. Daughters were members. They were, part of the family, but they had zero right to claim a slice of that ancestral property just by being born. Then in the other corner, you had the co-parceners. Now, these were the real partners in the family wealth, right from birth. And guess who could be a co-parcener under that 1956 Act? Yep, only sons. This one little distinction, it was the root cause of decades of inequality.
But things couldn't stay that way forever. The winds of change started blowing, and that brings us to a huge landmark moment in our story.
The year is 2005, and this year is a total game changer. It's the year that's going to completely rewrite the definition of what a daughter is entitled to. So, what happened? Parliament stepped in. They took that old 1956 law and they changed it. And the goal? It was really simple. Get rid of that legal line that had been holding daughters back for so long. And this is it. This is the heart of the change. The new law was crystal clear. A daughter, from the moment she's born, is a co-parcener with the exact same rights as a son. That old two-level system? Poof, gone. At least on paper. This was absolutely monumental. But you know how it is with the law, right? You fix one problem, and sometimes you accidentally create a whole new one. The new amendment was supposed to make everything clear, but instead it kicked off a full decade of total confusion. And this was the huge question that had everyone scratching their heads. For a daughter to actually get this new right, did her father have to be alive on that specific date, September 9th, 2005, when the law officially started? Or was this right hers from the moment she was born, no matter what? It was a massive question. And look, this wasn't some tiny legal detail. We're talking about something that affected millions of women. And for years, even the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, couldn't seem to make up its mind. It was a time of serious legal limbo. So what happened next was this incredible legal tug of war. You had two major cases that came to completely opposite conclusions. It was clear. They needed a tiebreaker, a final case to just settle this thing once and for all. And this is where it gets really, really confusing. So in 2016, the court says, yes, the father must have been alive in 2005 for the daughter to inherit. Okay, clear enough. But then just 2 years later, a different bench from the same court says, no, actually, it doesn't matter. I mean, what? Which one is it? The whole country was waiting for a final clear answer. Finally, it all comes to a head in 2020. The Supreme Court takes on a new case. This is the big one, Vinitha Sharma versus Rakesh Sharma. And the whole point of this case was to end the confusion, for good. And to make sure this really was the final word, they brought in the big guns. A larger bench with 3 judges was put together. Whatever they decided would override those other conflicting rulings and become the law of the land for everyone. And the court's final decision? It was incredibly powerful and just crystal clear. They said a daughter's right comes into existence at her birth. Full stop. It has nothing to do with whether her father was alive on some specific date. The court basically said this right is built in, it's absolute, and honestly, It's been hers the whole time.
Phew. Okay, so after that whole roller coaster ride through legal history, what's the bottom line? What does all this actually mean for daughters across India today, right now?
All right, let's break it down, nice and simple. Number 1, daughters are co-parceners by birth, period. They have the exact same rights as sons. Number 2, this is all about that ancestral property we talked about earlier. Number 3, and this is the big one, a daughter's right doesn't depend on her father being alive back in 2005. And finally, number 4, that 2020 Supreme Court ruling is the final word. The debate is over.
So the law has finally officially caught up. On paper, there is equality. But that leaves us with an even bigger question to think about, right? Now that the law is clear, how does this change things on the ground? How will it reshape our ideas of family, of legacy, and what true equality really looks like for the next generation?